posted pictures of his perfect girlfriend, but it wasn't me. I was the secret he hid offline, and when I finally learned why, my world collapsed. I used to think being private about a relationship was romantic, like it meant it was real, sacred, something just between us. Now I know there's a difference between private and hidden, and I'm still trying to figure out how I didn't see the difference until it was too late. When I met Evan, he wasn't the kind of guy you'd expect to fall for right away. He was quiet, kind of awkward, the type to laugh at his own jokes before finishing them. I met him through my friend Natalie at a game night she hosted. She was dating one of his friends, and Evan showed up late, hair messy, holding a six-pack like it was his entry ticket. I remember thinking he looked like someone who always ran 5 minutes behind life but somehow still kept it together. He was funny without trying too hard. When I spilled my drink and started apologizing, he just smiled and said, "You made the game more exciting." That's how it started. Small, nothing dramatic, just easy. We started texting after that night, then hanging out, then full-on dating within a couple of months. He wasn't flashy, not one of those guys who post good morning beautiful selfies or long captions about love. Honestly, I kind of liked that. My ex was obsessed with appearances, and everything we did had to be documented, captioned, filtered. With Evan, things felt real, simple, but simple slowly turned into secret, and I didn't notice it happening. At first, I didn't care that he never posted me. I'm not one of those people who need constant online validation. He said he didn't like sharing his personal life on social media, and that sounded healthy, right? Except he was posting, just not about me. He'd post about his hikes, his dog, his solo coffee adventures, which I knew weren't solo because I was sitting across from him half the time. Once I joked about it and said, "Wow, I'm invisible online." He laughed and said, "I'm just keeping my peace. People ruin good things when they overshare." It sounded mature. I believed him. We dated for a year and a half. During that time, I met a few of his friends, but never his family. That part stung. He said they were complicated and that they'd judge whoever he brought home. I didn't want to push it. My family's messy too, so I understood. But looking back, there were cracks I just ignored because I wanted to believe what we had was solid. He didn't like taking pictures together. Said he hated how he looked in photos. He'd make a face whenever I pulled out my phone and say, "Put that away, just enjoy the moment." So I did. I stopped taking photos, stopped asking for posts, stopped hinting about meeting his parents. I told myself that not everything needs to be broadcast to be real. Then one night, I was scrolling through Instagram while waiting for him to text me back. He was busy finishing a late project. I wasn't checking up on him. I just got bored. I scrolled past a mutual friend's story and froze. There he was. My boyfriend, arm around another girl, smiling. That soft, crooked smile I used to love. The caption said, "Cutest couple alert, no finally official." I thought it had to be old. A mistake. Maybe some random misunderstanding. I clicked the girl's profile. Her name was Lila. Her entire feed was full of him. Photos of them hiking, grabbing coffee, and at the park with their dog. All recent. All the things we did, except he wasn't hiding her. I don't know how long I sat there staring at those photos, but I remember my heart feeling like it was trying to crawl out of my chest. I texted him, just one line, "Who is Lila?" He didn't reply for 3 hours. When he finally did, all he said was, "It's not what it looks like. Please don't overreact." That word, overreact, I swear it flipped a switch in me. I called him, but he ignored it. I tried again. Nothing. Finally, I got this long, rambling message about how things between us had been unclear lately, and how he didn't mean to hurt me. He said he'd been trying to figure things out while going public with another girl. Cool. I didn't even cry right away. I just sat there, numb, scrolling through her page. She wasn't some random rebound. They'd clearly been seeing each other for months. There was a picture of them at a cafe that I recognized, a cafe I'd introduced him to. The timestamp? 2 weeks after our anniversary. I felt sick. When I finally confronted him in person, he kept saying things like, "You knew I wasn't ready for something serious," or "We never labeled it officially," which was news to me, because we'd spent holidays together, gone on trips, met each other's friends. What part of that isn't serious? But the worst part wasn't even the betrayal. It was realizing how easily he'd compartmentalized me. How my entire relationship existed in a private corner while his public life had this shiny, Instagram-approved version that didn't include me at all. I wasn't his girlfriend. I was his secret. He said he didn't want people in his business, but the truth was he didn't want anyone to see me. Not because I wasn't good enough, but because I didn't fit the image he wanted. Lila was polished, influencer pretty, always camera ready. She looked like she belonged in his feed. I didn't. That's what gutted me the most. Not just losing him, but realizing he'd been curating his life like a highlight reel, and I was just an unfiltered draft he never planned to post. After he walked out that night, I sat on my couch scrolling through old photos I'd taken of us, photos he refused to be tagged in or asked me not to share. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. The imbalance, the subtle way he controlled the narrative even offline. He got to decide what parts of me were seen. And now, he's online with a new girlfriend, living the same recycled story, but this time it's public. Every perfect couple photo they post makes me cringe a little less each day, because I know what's underneath it. The silence, the control, the tiny erasures that add up until you forget what real even feels like. I'm not there yet, healed or wise or whatever people like to say after heartbreak, but I'm starting to take pictures again. Of me, my friends, my life. No filters, no captions, no one telling me to put my phone away, just just me, existing, visible. For a while, I thought I'd already hit the worst part, finding out he had someone else. Turns out, the worst part comes after, when the adrenaline fades and you start putting the timeline together. When every memory you thought was sweet starts to rot around the edges because now you see what was really happening underneath. It started small. I wasn't even trying to dig. I think part of me still wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, that maybe he hadn't overlapped us, that he was just confused or impulsive. I didn't want to see him as the villain, but lies have a way of surfacing, even when you're trying not to look. A few days after I found out, I met up with my friend Natalie. She's the one who introduced us, and she'd been keeping her distance since everything went down, probably because she was caught in the middle. When we finally sat down for coffee, she looked more nervous than I did. She said, "I didn't know, okay?" I swear I didn't. I didn't even ask yet, but she knew why I was there. Apparently, everyone in our friend group had seen his new posts, and the gossip was already circulating. I asked her straight out, "How long has he been seeing her?" She hesitated before answering. "I think since the spring. Maybe earlier. Spring. That was 6 months ago. We were still together then." I remember because he'd taken me on a weekend trip in April. His idea. We'd hiked, stayed at this tiny cabin he found online, and cooked dinner together. It was one of those weekends where you think, this is what being in love is supposed to feel like. While I was busy memorizing his laugh, he was probably texting her. Natalie said she only realized recently. Lila started showing up at events with him, ones I wasn't invited to. Apparently, he told people we weren't serious anymore, that I wanted different things. The thing is, he was the one who told me he wasn't ready to move in together yet. He twisted it so it looked like I'd been the one pulling away. I went home that night and did what I swore I wouldn't. I looked deeper. I didn't stalk him. I stalked her. It's weird how much you can learn from a person's social media. I noticed little things. Matching cups, same couch pillows I'd picked out with him, the same stupid cactus plant I bought him for his desk. He must have told her he liked it so much she got one too. There was even a photo of his dog wearing the same scarf I bought for it last winter. Every post was like a punch in the stomach. The part that really broke me wasn't even the cheating, and it was the realization that he'd just recycled everything. The dates, the words, even the poses. She posted a picture of them at a lake with the caption, "Found my calm." I remembered that exact caption because he'd used it for our lake photo a year earlier. It was like watching someone plagiarize my relationship. I ended up messaging one of his old friends, Kyle, whom I'd met a few times. He was always nice to me, but he kind of disappeared from our circle when things got serious between me and Evan. I figured maybe he'd know something. He didn't even act surprised when I told him what happened. He said, "Honestly, I'm sorry you had to find out like that. He's been living 2 lives for a while." 2 lives. Those words stuck in my head like a splinter. Kyle said he'd noticed the overlap around February. Apparently, Evan had told his friends he was seeing someone new, but that it wasn't official yet. Meanwhile, he was still introducing me as his girlfriend to others. When they questioned him about it, he brushed it off, said I was just a close friend. I couldn't believe it. This whole time, I'd been careful not to pressure him, giving him space when he needed it, being understanding. And he was out there telling people we were barely a thing. I wanted to be angry, but mostly I just felt stupid. The thing about being hidden isn't just that no one knows you exist. It's that when you disappear, no one notices. After that, I started remembering small details I'd ignored. The night he canceled dinner with me because his boss kept him late, but he'd posted a photo the next morning of a concert, with Lila's hand visible on his shoulder. The birthday gift I'd mailed him that he never got, but she posted a story with it 2 days later. The restaurant he swore he'd never been to, but suddenly tagged her in a photo there. It wasn't one lie. It was hundreds of tiny ones stitched together until I couldn't tell what was real anymore. I deleted our photos that night, not out of anger, more like survival. Every time I saw his face, I remembered a different lie. I even thought about deleting social media altogether, but then I realized that wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't being online. It was trusting someone who used privacy as camouflage. A week later, I got a message from someone unexpected, one of Lila's followers. She said she'd seen my comment under an old post before I deleted everything, and thought I should know something. Apparently, Evan had told Lila I was his ex who couldn't let go, that I was still texting him and making things weird. I laughed when I read it, that kind of hysterical laugh that doesn't even sound like laughter. He really had a story ready for every side. He'd painted me as the clingy ex while telling me we were just working through things. It was the first time I realized he wasn't just careless. He was calculated. I didn't respond to the girl, but I did start screenshotting everything. His messages, her posts, the overlaps. I don't even know why. Maybe part of me wanted proof that it all actually happened, that I wasn't losing my mind. Because that's the thing. When someone lies to you long enough, you start doubting your own version of reality. You start thinking maybe you were too sensitive, or maybe you misread things. But the screenshots didn't lie. The timestamps didn't lie. Evan did. Over and over over again. And for the first time since it all happened, I started to feel something other than pain. I felt clarity, cold, sharp clarity, the kind that makes you stop waiting for closure and start realizing you don't need it. Still, I wasn't done learning just how deep it went, because a few days later, I got a message that changed everything from someone I never expected to hear from. The message came on a random Wednesday night when I was trying to convince myself I was finally moving on. It was from her, Lila, the girl from the photos. Her first line was short: "I think we need to talk." My heart started pounding so hard I thought I was going to throw up. I stared at the screen, not knowing if I should respond or just block her and move on. But curiosity, or maybe the need for validation, won. I typed back, "About what?" She sent a screenshot of one of my old comments on his page. I had written it before everything came out. Something harmless, like "so proud of you," she wrote underneath it. "He said you were just a friend from work." I felt my throat tighten. Before I could reply, another message came in. "But I saw your pictures together. He said they were old, that you were obsessed with him and wouldn't stop messaging." I wanted to believe him, but then she sent another screenshot, one of his messages to her. He'd told her I was unstable, that I made up stories because I couldn't handle being dumped. I didn't even realize I was crying until I saw the screen blur. I took a breath and started typing, fingers shaking. I told her everything, that we'd been together for almost 2 years, that I'd only found out about her because of Instagram, that he'd lied to both of us. I sent her screenshots too, careful not to sound vindictive. Just facts. She went quiet for a long time. Long enough for me to start wondering if she'd blocked me. Then a final message popped up. "Can we meet?" Every rational part of me screamed, "Don't do it." But something about her tone, tired, defeated, made me say yes. We met at a cafe downtown, one of those quiet places with low lighting and soft music. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her from the photos. Online, she looked perfect. Hair curled, glowing skin, effortless smile. In person, she looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. We sat across from each other, both clutching our coffees like shields. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "He told me you were crazy." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because of how familiar it sounded. "He told me the same thing about his ex before me." That's when she looked up, eyes wide. "Wait, there was someone before you?" That's how I learned I wasn't the first girl he'd hidden. She started scrolling through her phone and showed me texts he'd sent her. Some overlapped with the same nights he'd texted me. Same words, same tone. He'd even copied entire messages, down to the pet names. "Does he always call you Sunshine?" she asked. My stomach dropped. That was my nickname. I wanted to feel angry at her, but I couldn't. She looked broken, the same way I had when I found out. "He told me he was single when we met," she said. "Said you were an ex who couldn't accept it." I swear I didn't know. I believed her. She didn't owe me anything, and yet here she was, sitting across from me, trying to make sense of the same nightmare. We talked for hours. Every time one of us shared a detail, the other's face would twist in disbelief. The overlapping dates, the duplicate gifts, the identical lines, like he had a script he used for each of us. By the end of it, we were both shaking. She whispered, "He's supposed to meet my parents this weekend." I didn't say anything for a long time. Then I said, "He introduced me to his parents after lying to me for months. Do you really want to bring him home knowing this?" She stared at her cup, then said quietly, "No, I want him to know I know." We decided to confront him together. I don't even know how that idea came up. Maybe it was mutual exhaustion, maybe revenge, maybe the need for closure. But once we said it out loud, it felt right. She texted him from her phone, asking if he could meet for dinner that Friday. He agreed, no hesitation. He probably thought it was another night out with his perfect, postable girlfriend. He didn't know I'd be there too. The plan was simple. We'd meet at a restaurant he liked, the same one where he once told me, "I don't do drama." We got there early and sat side by side in a booth, silent, waiting. My hands were sweating so much that I had to wipe them on my jeans. When he walked in, the look on his face was almost worth everything. He froze in the doorway like someone had hit pause. His jaw clenched. His smile twitched, but he tried to recover fast. "What's going on?" he said, pretending to laugh. Lila spoke first. "Sit down." He didn't. "Whatever this is, I don't appreciate the ambush." That's when I pulled out my phone and started scrolling. I showed him the screenshots, the texts, the overlapping messages, the photos. His face drained of color. "You've been lying to both of us," I said. My voice was shaking, but it felt steady enough to hold. He started to say something, an excuse maybe, but Lila cut him off. "You told me she was delusional," she snapped, "that she was stalking you. But you were with her while you were texting me." The entire restaurant went quiet. He looked around embarrassed, then leaned closer and hissed, "Can we please not do this here?" I said, "Why not? You didn't mind going public when it suited you?" That hit him hard. For a second, I thought he might actually apologize. But instead, he switched tactics. That classic manipulative calm. "You're both overreacting," he said softly. "We weren't exclusive. You misunderstood." Lila laughed bitterly. "You told me you loved me, and you told me you needed time," I said. "You were living 2 lives, Evan." He didn't respond. He just stared at us. First me, then her, like he was trying to decide who to lie to next. But for once, neither of us looked away. Finally, he muttered something about needing space and walked out. No apology, no guilt. Just walked out like we were the problem. Lila and I sat there in silence for a while. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but all I felt was empty. The adrenaline faded, and what was left was this heavy sadness, like realizing someone you loved never really existed. When we finally left, she hugged me. It was awkward and fragile, but real. She said, "I guess we both dodged something." I nodded, though it didn't feel like a win yet. But later that night, when I checked my phone, I saw his Instagram story. It was a black screen with text. "Some people love attention more than truth." I laughed, an ugly, exhausted laugh, because of course he'd turn himself into the victim. Except this time, people weren't buying it. The comments started rolling in. Friends we both knew were tagging each other, asking what happened. One even replied, "Maybe if you didn't two-time women, you wouldn't have to post cryptic quotes." For the first time, the perfect facade started to crack. And watching it happen, I didn't feel vengeful. Just relieved. The next few days felt like living inside a group chat that never stopped buzzing. People from our old circle started reaching out, some pretending they just wanted to check in, others openly asking for details. I didn't give any. I was tired of giving pieces of the story away for him to twist later. Evan went quiet online for about a week. Then, like clockwork, he came back with a long caption about lessons learned and boundaries. It was polished, humble on the surface, but the subtext was obvious. He was painting himself as the guy who had been drained by toxic people. I almost admired the consistency of his delusion. What surprised me more was how people reacted. Instead of the usual flood of likes and supportive comments, there were long stretches of silence. A few brave souls wrote things like, "Maybe take accountability first," or "Boundaries don't mean lying to two women." Eventually, he turned the comments off. Lila texted me screenshots. "Guess his PR strategy failed," she wrote, followed by a shrug emoji. I didn't even bother replying with words, just sent a single heart. For the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I felt outside of it, like I'd stepped out of the storm and could finally hear myself think again. I started spending weekends with friends I'd neglected, the ones who never asked for updates but always saved me a seat. We'd talk about anything but him. Work, food, travel, dumb shows. It was like teaching my brain new rhythms after months of static. One night, Natalie asked if I regretted meeting him. I thought about it longer than I expected and said, "I regret staying hidden." That felt like the truest thing I'd said all year, because that's what it really came down to. Not just the lies, but how small I'd let myself become to keep the peace. I'd confused being private with being erased. Around that time, Lila deleted most of their photos. She sent me one last message. "I'm done pretending too." We didn't become friends exactly, but there was a quiet understanding between us, a shared bruise that didn't need more words. A month later, I bumped into Evan at a grocery store. He looked thinner, tired. He smiled like nothing had happened. "Hey, you look good," he said. For once, I didn't feel my heart race or my stomach twist. I just nodded, said, "Thanks," and kept walking. When I got home, I caught my reflection in the mirror and realized I wasn't smiling because I'd seen him. I was smiling because I hadn't looked for his reaction first. I didn't post about it, didn't subtweet, didn't screenshot, didn't need to. Some things feel better when they belong entirely to you. It's been almost 6 months since everything happened, but sometimes it feels like years. Other times, it hits me in flashes. A song, a restaurant we used to go to, the sound of someone else's laughter that reminds me of his. The difference now is that those moments don't crush me anymore. They just pass, like waves that used to knock me over but now barely reach my knees. I moved apartments in April. Nothing fancy, just a small place with way too much natural light and a balcony I still haven't furnished properly. My old place felt haunted by every version of me that tried to make it work with him. This one feels like a clean slate. I hung up my own photos, bought mismatched mugs, and started cooking again. Little things that make a space feel like mine. The funny part? Healing wasn't some big dramatic thing. It didn't come from a long rant or revenge or even an apology, which, by the way, never came. It came from the quiet, from choosing peace over closure, from not checking his page, not asking mutual friends, and not explaining myself anymore. Just letting the story end, even if it didn't end neatly. A few weeks ago, I ran into Lila again. We were both at a bookstore downtown. She was in line ahead of me holding a novel I'd actually read. We exchanged a look, kind of an awkward smile, and she said, "You look happier." I told her she did too. No tension, no bitterness. Just two people who finally stopped orbiting the same liar. Later that night, she sent me a text. "You were right. He never tells the truth unless it benefits him. Thank you for not letting him rewrite it." I didn't need thanks, but I appreciated it. For so long, I thought I needed everyone to believe my version. But the truth doesn't need witnesses. It just needs time. I still think about the girl I was back then. The one who thought love meant shrinking herself, keeping secrets to protect someone's image, mistaking manipulation for passion. I want to tell her it's okay. That it's not weak to trust people. It's just dangerous to ignore when they show you who they really are. Sometimes I'll catch myself standing on the balcony, watching the city lights, and I'll feel this small, steady sense of peace. It's not the cinematic fireworks kind of happiness. It's softer, earned. Evan still hasn't reached out again, which is probably for the best. His social media has gone quiet, and I've stopped wondering what he's doing. Maybe he's still lying to someone else. Maybe he's finally facing himself. Either way, it's not my story anymore. Mine starts here, with calm mornings, new playlists, and no one telling me who I'm supposed to be. For the first time in a long time, that feels enough. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. If you like this story, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell so you don't miss the next story. And if you've ever been through something similar, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your side. Thanks for being here. See you at the next one.